All right.
And we're live. Are we live?
Yeah, I think so. I hope so.
So good morning, afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome everyone to our winter workshop series. Today we're going to talk about mixing. We got the song that we've been working on called Money Tree pulled up. I haven't done anything in the session. It's just blank. And we're going to basically approach this from start to finish, how I would treat this song if I was mixing this song for real. I just got it to mix, how I would work with it, what I would do, and how I would take it literally from hearing it for the first time to printing a final mix and doing all that jazz. So if you have any questions, feel free to answer them. We got the chat screen open right here. I can see it. So if you're on the stream and you have questions, just type them in the chat. I'll get to them.
I've got one too.
Yeah, Noah's got it pulled up so he can be looking at it too. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Feel free to stop me and we'll go over something if you want to hear something a little more in depth, whatever. There'll be parts where I move pretty quick and I'll explain why. But yeah. So before we get started, I wanted to explain that to me, really, there's two different types of mixing. Hello. You can come closer. I don't bite. I do bite.
I'm not like it.
There's two different types of mixing. One that is very technical and one that is very not technical. I fall into the not technical type of mixing. What that means is that I don't care necessarily about what frequencies I'm boosting, what frequencies I'm cutting. I don't cut a lot. I boost more than I cut. I probably might not cut at all. But that's just how I work because that's how the people that I came up working with worked. Now there are people that are very technical and they'll go in and they'll take out very specific bands of frequencies, very narrow cuts on things that they don't like. They don't like that frequency band. I'm not like that at all. I'm very much a put an SSL EQ on it. I like the SSL EQ. I like mixing on SSLs. Our automation doesn't work on ours here, so that's why we're not mixing it in Studio A. We can't automate. Automate means have Pro Tools move the faders back for you. Like when I'm push them up to get the guitars louder when the vocal goes away or something. Automation is Pro Tools like moving those faders for me. I don't have to do it every single time. So just so you know, like I'm that kind of mixer. That's my workflow. That might not work for you. It might work for you, but I'm very much a feeling, emotion. The song, like the emotion and the energy of the song, is the most important thing to me. I don't care about what frequencies I'm boosting or cutting. I don't care about how much compression I'm using. I don't care about any of the other stuff. All I care about is, does the song have drama? And there are three things I'm looking for: tall, deep, and wide. Tall is EQ. I can add high end and low end to extend the frequency range, right? Deep is reverb. That's space. How farther back I can make things sound. Like when we put reverb on a voice, it makes it sound like it's in a space. It's not right up in front of you. And wide is pan. That's the difference between a left and right speaker. I can pan things left and right to get them to go out in the speakers. And I'm a wide panning type of person. I like things hard panned. I don't pan a lot of stuff in the middle. Sometimes I might automate something to go a little more narrow in the middle, and we might in this song. But the only reason I'm doing that is to make the chorus, when it goes wide, feel bigger. Might do that in this song, we'll see. So the first thing that you want to do when you get a song to work on is listen to either the rough mix that the artist sent you. In this case, we don't have one. Or just push up the faders and listen to the song for the first time. When you listen to the song for the first time, what you want to be doing is, like, all the ideas that hit you in your head, make sure you keep track of those, because you're never going to get the experience of listening to a song for the first time ever again. You only get that once. So if something hits you in a certain way and you say, oh, it would be cool if the vocal did that here, make a mental note of that, because you can come back and do that later on. And you might not have it after you've heard the song 50 times, right? So make mental notes of that. And also start to map out your problems, where you think you're going to have issues, where you think you're going to run into problems, and what can help you overcome those or things like that, because we want to try and knock those out as quick as possible. Ideally, your mix should not take that long. This one will take longer today because I'll be explaining things, but I'm a firm believer in the longer you mix a song, the closer and closer to mediocrity you get. Right? Because we're not looking for like perfection, we're looking for excitement. And excitement doesn't necessarily mean that it's perfect. The guitars might be a little too loud. Like guitar 1 might be a little too loud in chorus 2. Great, I don't care. Right? Like it's not like if the guitars are loud, maybe if you can't hear the vocal, then it might be too loud. But if they're a little louder than they were in chorus 1, but the vocal's still there, like I don't care. Right? All right. So let's listen to the song. This is Money Tree by Wyndigo.
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 Wyndigo is good though.
Apologies for getting the band name wrong. So here we go. Let's have a listen. It's deafening. Oh, you're on OBS.
It was a trap.
Talk to me just to make me feel you don't know what it means to not have anybody try to pick me up. I believe you for a moment, only to fall down. I knew that this was coming. Fake love. To be anyway, but you forget.
Okay, anything stick out to anybody?
The drums were. Is there anything on the mix at all?
Nope. No, it's completely straight.
The drums sound already pretty sick.
Yeah, the drums sound good. Well, we recorded this here, so.
Which studio?
In A. And there's already, I've already put some samples on the drums in there. That's the thing. I put some samples in there because I always use samples when I mix. But the drums do sound pretty good. Does anybody pick up on what we think is going to be the problem with this mix?
I think the guitars are too flat and her voice is super prominent.
Yeah, she's got a really powerful vocal, and we've got to find a way to squeeze that into the track. Because if you think about it, like, a great powerful singer is awesome, and they're great. But the problem is in a mix is we don't have this much range for a singer. We only got about this much. Because we got guitars, we got drums, we got everything else. She can't take up too much space from her loud. We got to be able to hear when she's quiet, hear when she's loud. So how do we do that? Like, that's a compression thing. And I'll probably use a ton of compression, probably multiple compressors on her vocal to get it to sit where I think it needs to fit in the mix. Because she's a very loud singer. She's a very powerful singer. So she goes from being really quiet to being really loud. She's got a wide dynamic range, which is great. But we can't have that work in the track altogether. It won't fit. Like, the quiet parts will be too quiet. The loud parts will poke over the top and be too loud. The vocal, like, think of a mix like a Christmas tree. This is a great example. I use this one a lot. A Christmas tree, like, is perfectly shaped and all the little things are trimmed off the outside of it. That's what we want in our mix. We don't want the vocal poking out with like a little branch over here. We want it to be nice and trimmed up and neat and tidy. So that's kind of the way I view it when I'm thinking about things that are poking out on top of the mix. But yeah, the drums sound good. We can make them sound better. The guitars are okay. They need a little love, but we'll get there. The vocal is the thing that's going to take the most amount of work. So let's start there. Let's just look at the vocal real quick. Oh, I lost my chat. Let me know if anybody says anything, Noah.
I will.
There could be no one out there watching us.
No, we already got some folks
like 6 people.
Oh, good. Hello, 6 people. So let's go down here to the vocal. I color code everything, so the lead vocal is always either purple or pink for me, depending upon. Color code your sessions to help you navigate things easily. Prep your mix before you start the creative process. Do all the tedious stuff. Some of the stuff I didn't do because I wanted to show you, but ideally I have everything set up in my mix and ready to go so that I can start pushing faders and doing EQ from the minute I hit the space bar. Usually when I'm listening to the song for the first time, I'm putting on EQ plugins like in the track and EQing things. Because like I said, the longer you spend on a mix, the more, the closer to mediocrity you get. You just keep getting towards the middle, and then the middle's boring, right? So that's what I don't want to do.
I think it's important not to lose the power of the vocals too.
Right. We don't want to lose the power, but we also want to make sure that we're not letting her get too quiet. Like, we can't let her dictate the power of the song with her vocal. We want to be able to dictate the power of the song with a fader on her vocal. That's what I want to do. So let's look at the vocal. And there are 4 tracks of vocals. There's a lead vocal, BGV1, BGV2, BGV3. We tracked these vocals on Tuesday, so we didn't get a lot of time to prepare them. I tuned them very quickly, so we might find a note that's not right. If we do, we can just drop the tuner on there and zip it up. But I do know for a fact that I want to treat the vocal differently in the verses and in the choruses. I don't want to have the same effects on my vocal in the verses that I have on my vocal in the choruses, because the choruses are louder, they got a lot going on, where the verses are more, they have more space to do stuff. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is split my vocal, take my lead vocal track, let's solo it up. Here we go. Let's just duplicate this track. I'm using the mouse on the D control, so it's a little harder to use, but we'll get there. We'll make it through it. What I want to do is, I got the all group on. That's not good. What I want to do is mute. Shortcut for mute is Apple M. I want to mute the verses in one track of the vocal and mute the choruses in the other track of the vocal. So what I have is this will be lead vocal verse. Let's call it verse. And this one will be lead vocal chorus or hook, whatever you want to call it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my vocal on two separate tracks so that I can treat them differently and be able to move them on independent faders relative to what's going on in the song. This looks like verse.
Tainted by suspicion. Don't trust the human.
Okay, so we got that going for us, which is good. So now we have everything lined up. I got vocals the way I want. This little thing she does right here, when I heard the song for the first time, I thought that might be a really cool spot to put like an effect on her vocal, because it's just she says that one line, maybe some like distortion and some delay, maybe pan it off to the right or left, because she just says that one line, like don't trust a human, like that's all she says. It's not like a verse, it's not a chorus, she says that one line. So it might suck, but it might be cool to throw like some distortion or something on that vocal and have it like make a moment, make it drama. Drama is what you need in a mix. Drama is important. So it might be a moment that we could add some in there with that little word. So I'm just going to leave it in the chorus track for now, but we'll come back to it. Now let's check out these background vocals. I'm going to show you guys a little trick that is super, super awesome. Let's solo them up and let's have a listen.
You don't know what it means to not have anybody try to pick me up. I believed you for a moment, only to fall down. I knew that this was coming.
So it's pretty good. It's a pretty good pass. Would anybody notice anything that's a little off about it? Timing. She's not perfectly in time with herself, which we don't want it to be perfect, but we want it to be close, because when you're dealing with vocals, if they're not super tight, you lose clarity. So we want them to be as like tight as possible when she's doubling herself, so we don't lose clarity in what she's trying to say. This works, and this is the same for any kind of vocal double, whether it's pop, hip hop, country, whatever. Anytime there's a vocal double, you want it to be super tight so you don't lose clarity in the words, so that they're saying the same words at the same time.
Would you just quantize that then?
Nope, we don't quantize that. We have a super, super awesome plugin called Vocaline. Vocaline is a great plugin. Here's how it works. You select the region that you want to be the lead vocal, the guide that you want the other one to follow. Okay? And it's an audio suite plugin, so it renders the file. So it's made by Synchro Arts. It's called Vocaline. I tested it yesterday. I know it's going to work. Okay, here it goes. Right? So how Vocaline works is there's a guide track, a dub track, and an output. Guide track is usually your lead vocal. That's the one that you want it to lock to. The dub is what you want to lock. So in this case, the guide is the lead vocal. The dub is her background vocal. I want to lock the background to the lead. So what I'm going to do is I've selected the region that I want to grab in my audio track, right? That's the guide capture. Right, I'm going to hit Control semicolon. That moves the same time selection down one track, because I don't want to change the time selection. I want to make sure that I have the same selection in time, so I grab the same time of audio. Dub capture. It's going to analyze the audio. And we hit render. It takes what it does and it renders that into a new file and puts it down in the track that I have selected. So let's do that. And let's have a listen. Let's move this off the screen just so I can.
Just to make me feel weak. You don't know what it means to not have anybody.
It's pretty sweet, right?
Try to pick me up. I believed you for a moment, only to fall down. I knew that this was coming.
It missed one thing. Anybody hear what it missed? Yeah, there's a T in moment.
Believed you for a moment, only.
I'm just gonna cut that out of her background vocal because we won't hear it in the mix.
Only.
Uh-oh.
Moment, only. Only to fall down. I knew that this was coming.
Pretty slick, right?
So what if you don't have the plug-in? What's like the other?
You do it by hand.
Each quantize.
You spend $85 and you buy the plug-in. If you,
This
yeah,
is one that's worth every dollar.
yeah,
For sure.
yeah. Because if you think about it, like, if you charge 35 to 50 bucks an hour for vocal editing, in like 2 hours, the plugin's paid for itself. And it saves you massive amounts of time. Like, that would take me like 15 to 20 minutes to do by hand.
And that's a pretty good take too. Like if you start getting some that are
Yeah, when you get some from like bands that
Yikes.
recorded in garages and like less tight performances, yeah, oof.
What's the name of that plug-in?
Voc Align, VOCALIGN. They have like a pro version and a LE like light version. I'm just using the LE version. It's like 85 bucks. It's well worth it. So now let's go grab the chorus.
it's also good if you guys are wanting to get into film audio.
Yeah, film audio because you can align the actor's dialogue from the live performance and the shot to the ADR dialogue. You can align it up together. It works for that too. But then the music industry was like, man, we could use this to line up background vocals, so why not? All right, so now let's grab the chorus. I've got my chorus selected right here. So now that becomes our guide track, so I'm going to capture that. I'm going to use Control semicolon, grab that. That becomes our dub. Capture, render. Let's see how that did.
Fake love, fake friends who needs me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity. I wanted more, that's what I got. Soon enough, we'll all be by. My walls are up, not caving in, don't trust a human.
Pretty sweet. Pretty awesome. So let's get verse 2 here. This is all the kind of stuff that people don't realize go into what takes like non-professional projects to pro projects. It's all this little stuff like this that we do that makes things better.
Does the vocal line use AI technology?
It's been around before AI technology, so I don't know. But the new version probably does in some level. I mean,
By, tainted by suspicion and clouded by our loss, turn into a power that we ourselves had wrought.
I just realized there's a bad where the tuner kicked in hard on that VGV. This is Auto-Tune Pro. Show make active. There it is. That's cool, right? Let's just grab it from the comp.
And clouded by our loss.
Just grab it from the comp. Not a big deal. And move on. So now let's grab this chorus again. Vocal line. Capture. I hit Control semicolon to go down to the track underneath it. That's my dub track. Capture. Analyzes it, does its thing. Render. Bam. We're done. So again, if I was doing that like without having to explain it to you, like that would have taken me all of 2 minutes, if that. That would take you an hour by hand, I promise you at least. So vocal line, there are very few plugins that I say like nothing does what this plugin does. There's nothing else that replaces it. I don't think there's anything else that replaces what vocal line does. If there is, I don't know about it and somebody tell me. But I mean, I use vocal line on every single mix, so it's awesome. Really good for doing like doubles. If you have someone that can't double super tight, you don't want to beat them to death. So you can get it close and then just use vocal line to finalize it and get it super tight. So the last thing you want to do is beat your singer to death and have them do it like 50 times trying to get it perfect. When we get it close, and then vocal line can make it perfect. So that's my other spiel on vocal line, why I like it. Okay, so now we've got a bunch of chopped up regions here. Let's heal all this. There we go. Uh-oh, that's not what I wanted to do. It healed my mutes. I guess we'll just leave it. So BGV2 is in there. BGV1 is in the verse. I'm just trying to line them up to make it let's make it look manageable here. Okay. So now I've kind of got the song laid out. I've worked on the vocals a little bit. I've got them separated. Let's go back and let's listen to the drums. And I'm going to leave. I'm not, very rarely will I solo something in a mix, because I don't care usually about what something sounds like in solo. Sometimes I might, if I want to hear if I'm distorting something or if I'm overdriving it or I think I'm doing something too much, I might solo it up. But for the most part, I'll probably never solo anything while I'm mixing, because I don't care what anything sounds like solo. I just don't. Like, no one's going to hear it in solo, so who cares, right? So kick drum's a sample. The reason why we replaced it with a sample is because, and the reason why we use samples is because they're consistent. Especially when he's playing fast double kicks, one kick is like lighter than the other one, and it sounds weird. When he hits fast snare drums, they're not the same volume. They're inconsistent. So we use samples to help the consistency so every hit sounds the same. Right? It's not cheating. When I was in college, everyone was like, no, don't use samples, that's cheating. But then when I got out of college, I learned that every mixer that I loved was using samples. So I use samples. It's not cheating. It's a tool in your toolbox to solve a problem, right? And we want the snare drum and the kick drum to be consistent. Even if he's playing really fast, we don't want it to get quieter or anything like that. We want the hits to be consistent. So that's why. Now we threw out the real kick drum. You can throw out the real kick drum a lot easier than you can throw out the real snare drum. The real snare drum you cannot get rid of most of the time, because it has all like the ghost notes and the rolls and all that stuff. You can't just replace that with a sample. It will sound fake. So I'm going to blend the real snare drum with samples together. Let's check that out. So here's our real snare drum. I will solo that up so we can hear it. And it's good, but it could use some life. So anytime that, I'm just going to go ahead and say this, anytime I put an EQ on a track, I'm going to use the SSL EQ. I use the CLA Mix Hub one because I like it, and there's a light version that's processor easy, so I can, if I'm mixing a song with 90-something tracks, I can have 90-something EQs and not like stress out my computer at all. So I'm going to use that. Anytime I go for an EQ, that's probably what I'm going to grab first. So that's what we're going to do on the snare drum. And on your computer, set up there's a preference where you can set your most used plugins where they show up in the menu. You don't have to search for them. I have it set up on my personal computer, my studio computer, but it's not set up on this one because once I sign out of my Waves account, the plugins won't exist on this computer anymore. So I didn't want to have them up there all the time. But you can set it up where they show up in the drop-down menu when you click on the plugins thing. You can set up in the preferences to where certain plugins will show up in that menu. You don't have to go and search for them, which makes this a lot quicker. So let's work on our snare drum here. That's without my EQ. Let's take it back in. Here's without it. Here's with it. So all I did was add in some high end, add in some low end, and added like some 2K smack where the stick, that's like the stick hitting the drum. And notice, like I said, I don't care. I do not care that if you look at that top EQ knob for the high end, what is it set to? Stun. I'm boosting like that thing is wide open. I'm boosting as much high end on the SL EQ as it'll allow me to boost on the high end of my snare drum. And I don't care. Right? Sounds good. So who cares? There are people that are like, oh, you shouldn't boost a lot, you cut a lot, it's more phase coherent. That's not my style. That's just not what I do. So I'm a booster. I'm an adder.
Part of the problem.
So now let's throw on some compression. See if we can use the distressor that's built into Virtual Mix Rack. I like that one a lot. You worked yesterday. You're going to work for me. I know you are. Come on. Come on.
I'm assuming that this takes time to learn. I mean, it's not something you gain like right away. Right?
Well, everything takes time to learn. It's just.
I would say it's hard to. The verbiage on that is a little bit weird because it's a lot more about reps. Like, at least to me. Like, when you can understand the process, especially when you get into mixing or editing vocals or anything like that, getting the reps and the speed allows you that freedom to pick up more of that skill. So it's true, it takes time to learn, but it's also, it has to be in practice on repetition with that conscious effort of trying to improve that workflow.
The more you do it.
Yeah.
Right. The more you do it. So let's do on some compression. Now it sounds like a punchy snare drum. We took it from okay to better to good, right? A little EQ, a little compression. I mean, it's not a little compression, it's a fair amount of compression, but you know, I don't care. Sounds good, right? So now let's check out what our snare samples are doing. Let's sneak those bad boys in. Oh, snare bottom. Let's EQ that bad boy. Oh, that's a sin. Oh, I don't have a scroll bar.
Why do you have your snare straight ahead versus right-handed to the right? Because some of the right-handed snare would be, on the left. Why would you not have it pan to the left so the snare's on the left?
Because the energy of the track always goes in the middle.
Yeah, so when you think about it in like a realistic setting, that in terms of like how people perceive that song won't be the same. So like your kick and your snare are always going to be dead center. Like your vocal, you'll see this a lot if you get into post, when you start doing dialogue, regardless of where that dialogue sits a lot of the time, it's going to be pan center, because that's how we're perceiving that voice from coming out. It seems a little bit counterintuitive, because when you think about it, it's like, yeah, the snare's over here, wherever. But like Ryan said, that's not where the energy's at. That's not how we perceive it.
Now, is that just like a rule of thumb for you, or is that kind of like?
That's like an industry standard, like.
Because I mean, you can listen to certain mixes. You can hear like the ride on the ride.
Oh, yeah.
You can hear everything else like panned out.
Yeah, we're gonna pan everything else. We just don't pan the snare drum.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can go back to like old school like jazz Motown stuff, where the drums are like all on the right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like so that style has definitely been experimented with over the decades, and it's ultimately fallen on exactly what Ryan said. The energy's there, and there's certain things that stay centered because that's the heart and soul of that song.
Yeah.
So you keep that key rhythm in the middle, that vocal in the middle, and you need space there. So that's when you start panning out your guitars and your cymbals and stuff like that. You're building that stereo image out to essentially support that initial core of that song.
The middle is sacred ground. Kick, snare, vocal, bass. Yeah. You got to make all that fit in the middle. So it's sacred ground. It's hard to get all that to fit and not sound cluttered. And that's why I pan everything else out of the way, so it's not in the middle. So it's not all fighting together. Now there might be times where I might automate pan to come in, which we might do in this song, depending on how it feels. But yeah, the middle is like the energy goes up the middle. Unless you, like I said, unless you're doing a jazz recording, you'll probably never pan the snare drum. If it's like jazz or like something like that, then you might want to do it to make it fit the song, like the drum kit. But for rock and roll, straight up the middle.
And you'll have different like styles of mixing. So like some people will pan their guitars different. Like Ryan on this one is doing classic left for her pan, left, right. Some people might blend them a little bit differently. Some people will mix from drummer's perspective, and some people will mix from audience perspective. So like if you got a fill, your toms might be on different sides depending on how you mix. So Ryan does a lot of times audience perspective. I like drummer's perspective, and that's entirely stylistic. Like you'll hear different records do it completely differently. And when I hear it mixed in the audience perspective, it bothers me. Like, it sucks. I want to be in the car, and when I hit the tom over here on my steering wheel, I want to hear it over here. It's just a preferential thing. But they're all going to be snare down the middle.
Yeah.
Like that is a consistent thing.
Yeah. We don't pan the snare drum off the side. Never. Never say never. There's no such thing as absolutes.
Well,
All right, so now let's get to our samples. We got the snare bottom in there. We snuck him in. Notice I've added no reverb yet. No reverb on the drums yet, and I'll explain why that is in a second. So let's get our samples in. Here's our first sample. Here's our second one. So the first sample has ping, it has snap. The second sample has thud, it has body. So I'm blending them in to get like what I want out of each sample to make my snare drum sound the best way that I want. I can't get it out of just EQing my regular snare drum. I want more thud, but I can't just dime 100 hertz in it, because it'll bring up like the kick drum and the low cymbal stuff and all that in the snare drum. But I wanted more thud, so I picked a sample that has thud, so I sneak that in underneath our snare drum, and it brings up some thud, some of that 100 boominess. The other one has a lot of ping, ring, and snap. I can't compress my drum anymore because I'm bringing up the hi-hat, everything around it. So I want to have more ping that I can control the ping. So that's why I bring that sample in. So it's kind of like I'm not replacing the snare drum with using just samples. That is generally a bad idea. I'm using samples to augment the sound of my snare drum to get it the way that I want in the mix. Does everyone understand that?
What triggers are you using?
It's samples that I have from Trigger. It's Trigger too. It's Slate Trigger. I don't remember which ones I use. There's ones that I like. I have, and and like the guy that I learned from, that I was an intern for, became his assistant, and still work for to this day. Every time we track, we sample the drum kit, and I have probably like 500 Nashville session drum kits on a hard drive with samples too. So I have all those samples and I use them. I think actually Brad, who did the vocals, put this kick drum sample in. I liked it better than mine, so I kept it. But the snare drum ones are mine. I don't remember which ones they are.
And this is going back to like when you were talking about people don't be like, don't use samples, or like that's cheating or whatever. I always compare it. You were talking about like the trigger. I always compare it to like old Bob Ross videos. It's like if you're going for a specific color and you've got two colors that are not that color, you're like, oh, I'm gonna add another different type of red, another different type of orange, and then blend them.
Yeah.
No artist is gonna go, that's cheating. No, that's not. You identified an issue. You used these tools that you had, and you made what you were looking for creatively. So like, that goes for, you'll hear this a lot in audio in general, where people condemn specific workflows or whatever. I think that's bullshit. At any point, if you find a good way to do something and it sounds good, like Ryan's saying, then it's good. Like that's the bottom line.
Yeah, if it is good, it is good. That's what I say.
That's what I say all the time.
That's what I say all the time. All right, now let's get to our overheads. Overheads are the mics that look down on the kit, obviously, that record the whole drum kit. And there's two schools of thought to that. You pass out all the frequencies below like 500 hertz and get rid of all the drums, and you just have cymbals. I've seen people do that. I'm not one of those people. I like the low end in the overheads. I think it helps the kick have some body that's not just from the sample. So I actually use the low end and like the kick and the snare drum and all that from the overheads. I want them to come through in the mix. I don't want to just filter out all the drums and just have cymbals. But again, that's just the way I work. Your mileage might vary. So generally, I like high end and overheads. I don't EQ overheads when I track. So there's no EQ on these overheads on the way in. So let's dial in some EQ on them real quick. And the reason why I'm going to add high end is because I want to make sure the cymbals come through in the mix and they're present without having to turn the overheads up too loud where the cymbals get washy in the mix. I want to hear the crispness, like the sizzle, but without having to get like the splashiness and get washy in the mix. So I'm going to dial in some EQ here.
Talk to me.
Okay, so we're getting there. Toms, I put my toms on a stereo fader because I only want one. I don't want to do 3 faders for toms. I just set them like mix the level in where they sound good in terms of balance between all of them, and put them on 1 fader stereo, so I can just move 1 fader for all my toms, because I don't want to have to like grab 3 faders to automate a tom. If he does a tom fill and I want it to come up in volume, I just want to have to grab 1 fader. So that's why I do that. Now let's check out our room mic. We record it here. We don't have a very big room, so I had to fake it using the Sound City Studio room plugin. But I'm going to bring this in. Let's hear what it sounds like by itself first. I'm going to bring it in and listen what it does to the drum sound. So when you add too much, you can tell that it's like it's a room mic. It's distant away from the drums. You can hear them flaming a little bit. When you add like the right amount, it just makes it feel like there's space in the drum kit. To me, there's not enough space. So get ready for interesting thing number 1. We're going to put reverb on a room mic. We're going to put a room in a room. Here we go. So I'm going to use this plugin called Epic, which is a really good plugin that I like a lot. It's a multi-reverb plugin. Where is it? CLA Epic, there it is. And I happen to like Room 4 for this type of thing. And I just know that from experimenting with it, playing around with it. And it starts out at about 75% reverb, 25% dry. I'm going to bring that back to around 50-50. So what's cool about this plugin is it has 4 delays and 4 different reverbs all in one plugin, and you can control the level of them without having to make 4 different sends and set up 4 different reverbs. They're all inside one plugin. Here's what it sounds like by itself with the reverb on it. Here's how it gives a little bit of space to the snare drum.
Is that track the overheads, or is that?
That's a room mic. It's different.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I had to fake it, but it's generally like mics in the room away from the drum kit. I'd use a plugin to fake it because we don't have a big enough room to get good room mics. We tracked it in a little ISO booth. But here, let's listen to it with it, and then I'll take it out. Listen to the snare drum. Hear how it feels like it gets smaller? So it's not doing a lot, but it's doing a little bit. I haven't put reverb on anything else in the track. I just put my reverb on the room mics. I'm never gonna put reverb on the direct snare mic. Does anybody know why? There's lots of hi-hat in it. I don't want wishy-washy hi-hat going psh, 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 in my reverb for my snare drum. I can gate it. The gate that I like to use isn't installed on this computer, so I'm not going to. I could do that, but I'm not going to. But also, remember, I have 2 snare drum samples that have nothing but snare drum in them that I can send to a reverb that have no hi-hat bleed, no cymbal bleed, no anything. They're just pure snare drum. So I'm going to use my snare drum samples to trigger reverb for my snare drum. So let's do that now. And again, I'm going to do something that you probably like people don't do. A lot of people get mad about this. I'm going to put the reverb plugin directly on the track. I'm not going to make a send. I know that's sacrilegious in some circles, but the plugin has a blend knob. I can adjust how much dry wet. So I'm just going to put the plugin directly on our snare drum. I'm going to use snare drum sample 2 because it's the roomier of the 2. Right, that's our snare drum sample 2. Let's put Epic on it. Oop, it's got delay on it. Let's go and grab snare top and see what that sounds like. Turn the wetness down.
Wanna talk to me?
Snare drum sample because I thought it was still a little too dry. So now I have the reverb on both snare drum samples and not on my real live snare drum because I don't want all the cymbals to come through. Now let's talk about something very special that I do that I really like. Has anyone ever heard the term parallel compression? What is parallel compression?
Compression that is not exactly affecting it, it is directly on it, but not to it.
No, it's what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my drums, take the mix of my drums, send it to a compressor, and obliterate it. I'm going to intentionally obliterate this compressor, where it will sound compressed if you listen to it by itself. But the whole point is that I'm going to blend it in with the drums that are uncompressed and get a punchier drum sound because of the compression. If I just compress the drums that heavily, they would sound compressed. But if I over compress the drums, feed it back in and blend a little bit back in, I get the snap and the punch of the compressor without the sound of the compressor overreacting and pumping and it sounding like it's too compressed. I'll show you what that does. What I've done is I've made an aux. I call it the crusher. I'll Chris Sword Algae because he calls it the crusher, and this is where I kind of got this from. He calls it that, so that's what I call it. Drum crush, slam, whatever you want to call it works for me. I don't care. But we're going to go out the mix bus so we can hear it and everything. I'm going to set the input to a stereo set of bus 13 and 14. Let's rename that so we know what it is. Crusher. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take every single one of my drums, send to bus crusher. I'm going to go around -10, and I'm going to use FMP. Do you know what FMP stands for? Follow main pan. So now it's going to send to that bus with whatever pan setting I have set on the track. Right? So I'm just going to copy that over to all my drums real quick here. Do it the old way. Uh-oh, that one didn't go. Okay. So there's all my drums going out on a bus to another track that I've labeled Crusher. So if I turn this down, so you can see there's audio going through it, but I have the fader down without doing anything. So now let's put a compressor on this track. I'm going to use the, let's save. We haven't saved in a while. Apple S. Always good to save. I'm going to use the Neve 33609 C.
Can you save the different points so that if you like make a mistake, you can go back to what you did wrong? Or
Yeah, you can absolutely do that. I save a version at every so like every part of the process has a different version. Like tracking is a session, guitar overdub is a different session, vocals is a different session.
yeah.
So I can always go back from the session before that, and if I make a mistake or if I want to grab something from a previous session, I can always do that.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Apparently we're not going to use the 33609 because it is expired and it should be working. So let's see what we can get. Let's see what we have in virtual mix rack. I'm going to leave the EQ on there. Let's try the distressor, see what it does for us. Distressor is sometimes good at parallel mute. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drive a little bit of high end and drive a little bit of low end into this compressor because I want it to pump and make that affect that more. What do we got here? Parallel nuke. Sure, let's try it. All right, now I'm going to bring this in. Listen to the kick drum, like how punchy it is, like the aggressiveness, and the snare drum. Of course, they go away. Without it, with it. So it makes a difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's like all the attack is there and the,
Right.
the kick is awesome. Yeah.
Right. So it helps out with the attack and the punch of the individual elements of the drum kit. It's called parallel compression. You got to be careful with it because if you use it too much, the cymbals get a little aggressive. They get a little too washy. Especially if you compress your overheads and they're feeding into another compressor. I'm not compressing the overheads yet. We might when we get later into the song. If I can't get enough cymbal to fight with the guitars, we might compress our overheads. But we'll see. So the drums are pretty solid. I like the way they sound now. They sounded good to begin with. They just need a little bit of tweaking, and we've got them going. Cool. Let's look at our bass guy. See what he's doing. Oh yeah. Love it.
This is where I always feel on parallel. Just crush the bass.
Crush the bass. It's a good sounding bass because, you know, we recorded it. It's a bass amp, obviously. It's an amp simulator. So let's talk about bass real quick. If you're going to boost a frequency on a bass, be very careful about boosting the low end. Same thing with 808s, pads, anything like that that has a really big low end. Because if you boost 80 hertz, whatever note 80 hertz is going to be louder when they play it than the rest of the notes. So when you're working with low end instruments and you boost low end, if you make a very narrow curve, you're boosting an individual note or something that's close to a note. So work with something that's very broad and boost like all the low end or cuts all the low end so you're not cutting or boosting individual notes. In this case, I'm going to use a plugin that's designed to sort of compress the low end without and beef it up without compressing the high end where you have the string noise or anything like that. It's called R-Bass. Waves makes it. I'm going to put that very first thing on here. And let's see what that does. Dynamics, R-Bass. We gotta find it.
Well, what if that's like the tone of the band? You know, like Korn. You know what I mean?
Well, obviously, if the bass has, but in this case, I'm not like affecting. All I'm doing is giving it a little more low end, but I don't want to do it with an EQ because I don't want to boost the frequency.
Yeah, but if you sometimes pull away that pinging, you know.
Right, but this guy doesn't sound like that.
Yeah.
Right. If it was part of the tone, then I'm not going to take it out, obviously. But Yeah.
This is more like if you talk to Brad, why he's really adamant about like, if you're gonna mix your bass, he's gonna tell you use really wide bells, so you don't focus on one thing. So if you do want to focus on like the low end or the more attack, you can do that. Just make sure that you're doing it in a broad stroke first. So when you go back to your mix, you don't just have random notes popping out at you. And you're trying to, you're just building problems on problems.
So check this out. Here's what it's going to do. That's without it. This is with it. Whoops. So here it's affecting like all the low end together. It's making it a little more bottomy and beefy without boosting individual notes or anything like that. So that's why I like our bass. It's really good for that. And I totally stole this trick from Brad. So props to Brad. Because I used to use a Pultec on the broadest setting and boost like 80 hertz and up, so it was like a shelf that boosted all the low end together. But I like this R bass trick better. So, and now we're gonna compress it because like the bass needs to sit at a spot in the mix where it doesn't move. Does that make sense? Like the bass is always present in the mix. We don't want to lose the low end or anything when we're doing that. So I'm gonna use a little 1176 action. The black guy, the black one, not the blue one. And always the same settings, attack 3, release 7. That's without it, with it. It just sets it a little more in like the same space. So I'm not gonna like lose the bass under the guitars because it's gonna be consistent volume wise, even when he plays different volumes or anything. I think that's all she needs. Let's add, I don't know if we're gonna need it, but I'm gonna go ahead and put an EQ on here. The thing about sometimes the high end will save you in a mix in bass. When you can't get the attack or the note punch to come through, sometimes like the low end is where the body is, but the high end is where like the attack of the string and where he's plucking the string or hitting the string is. So in this case, I might need it when I get the big wall of guitars. I might need it so I can hear the note, the pick. Even though he's not using a pick, he's using his finger, but the attack of the note. Check out when I boost like some high mids, how that becomes more prominent. Hear how the note, like the attack, becomes more prominent? When I have a big wall of guitars, I might need that to help poke through, cut through when I can hear the individual notes. I don't know if I'm gonna need it yet, but I kinda like it. Kinda dig it. I'm gonna leave it there for now. Might come back to it. Guitars, my favorite part of the song, because guitars are awesome. Electric guitars, when they're distorted like this, they're already compressed. So you don't want to like just throw compression on top of them because it can squash them too much and they'll lose all their life. Right? But some compression can be okay, and you can use it and do some stuff. But the first thing I'm going to do is I like Neve EQs for electric guitar. They sound good on electric guitar, so I'm going to use the Waves. I think it's called. I have all these added in my thing. I never like look at the names of them. Shep 73. That's it. Yeah, I use the Shep 73. So this is going to get kind of interesting here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of high end, add a little bit of sheen, like 1. I'm going to pull some of this 0.7 out. That's a mid-range. I'm going to add a little bit of low end into this 110. But then I'm going to filter at 80 hertz. So what I'm doing is I'm adding some high end. I'm pulling out some mid-range, adding some low end and then filtering off at 80 hertz so you don't get that super low stuff, but we're still going to pick up the low end B for the guitar. Let's see what that sounds like. That's with it. That's without it. You know, it's much more pointy. It's a little aggressive, a little in your ears, like it's going to stab you in the ear. That's with it tightened up a little bit. So I kind of like that. I'm just going to copy it over to the other guitar because it's the same sound.
So for the 10-second 3,
Uh-huh.
where so I know that the mid knob and the bass knob have like what's the two knobs stacked on top of each other?
Yeah.
Concentric knobs?
Yeah.
What does the bottom one do?
One of them is frequency and the other one is gain and cut. So I think the bottom knob is frequency and then the top knob is boost or cut.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like an API. An API is like that too. I pulled a little bit of the low end out. I thought we got a little too much low end in there. It's going to fight with the bass, so I pulled a little bit out. So it's now I'm going to use some compression, but I'm not going to use it in the way that you think I am. I'm going to use this LA3A, and here's what it's going to do. It helps the notes stay present in the thing. So when he hits a note, it's a little quieter. So it helps the notes stay present like the whole time, like it's one solid volume in the guitars, right? So let's copy him over to the other track. Let's set our level. Oh my God, it splits the middle of the console. All right, that'll work for now. Now, just in the beginning, we have this third guitar part that goes up the middle. Why in the beginning do I have a third guitar part that goes up the middle?
It's a light fill.
Well, there's no vocal. Yeah, it fills up the space where the vocal should go in the middle of the song. So then it goes away when the vocal comes in. So let's just feed him in. I think our bass is a little quiet. Let's bring our bass guy up a little bit. Cool. Here you can hear the notes in the bass still because it boosted that high end a little bit. You can still hear the attack, and you can hear like the doon, 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 doon. Like we need that high end to help that cut through a little bit through our wall of guitars, which also have a lot of that same frequency range in them. So we kind of want to help it out a little bit. Finally to the vocal. We're finally here. Our biggest problem in this mix, we finally got here. And normally this would only taken me like 15 minutes, but I'm explaining everything as I go along, so this takes a long time. Let's check out this vocal. Wow, these
You wanna talk to me just to make me feel weak. You don't know what it means to not have anybody try to pick me up. I believed you for a moment, only to fall down. I knew that this was coming.
So my favorite vocal plugin is not working, so we'll just use something else. We'll go back to my SSL EQ. The SSL EQ or Pultec. This is where we might do some cutting.
You
I'm going to put a
wanna
filter
talk to
in around
me
70 hertz because we don't need anything below 70 hertz in our
just to
vocal.
make me feel weak. You don't know what it means to not have anybody try to pick me up. I believed you for a moment, only to fall down. I knew that this was coming.
Was a little nasally. I filtered out 70 hertz and below and added some sheen at like 8K and above in the high end to make it sparkle a little bit. Now let's put some compression on it. Vocals for me is always a blue 1176. Always. Attack 3, release 7, hit 10. Pretty simple formula. When you record a vocal, notice how this does exactly what I wanted it to do because it was recorded very well, like, and it's set up the right way. So that's good. When you record things well, a lot of times things work well. So keep that in mind. Don't always try and like fix it later on because it just puts off a hassle till later on.
You wanna talk to me just to make me feel weak. You don't know what it means to not have anybody try to pick me up. I believed you for a moment, only to fall down. I knew that this was coming.
Check our mix bus. I think we're hitting our mix bus a little hard. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys, I am using a compressor across the mix bus. I want it just to hit around 3 dB. I think we're hitting it a little hard. There we go. I thought we were hitting a little. I thought we were getting a little too compressy, a little too pumpy. But we got her sorted. Now again, let's just sort of rough in this other background vocal. I'm going to copy the same settings over to for my compressor and my EQ, because that's what I did on my lead vocal. It's the same mic, same setup, so that should work.
You wanna talk to me just to make me feel weak. You don't know what it means to not have anybody try to pick me up. I believed you for a moment.
Now let's talk about effects. Effects are what makes a vocal feel like it sits in a space. So we want to put effects on there, but we don't want to distract from the point of the vocal it's trying to make in the song. So I'm going to show you how to do this in two separate ways. Well, let's do it one way. Let's do it the complicated way, the way that you'll have to do it if you don't own Epic. So I want to put some short slap delay and some reverb on this vocal. Okay, so I'm going to use a send and return. So what I need to do first, I want to have mono slap delay and stereo reverb. So what do I need to do first? Anybody? Bueller? We got to make tracks for them. Shift Apple in. I want to make one mono aux input. We'll call it a slap. Oops, I could have made the other one. I hit enter real quick. I need one stereo aux input. Call this one verse verb, because I'm going to use it in the verse. And I always make these sort of an orangey color so I can tell they're auxes. For my effects. Let's see, they got to go out our mix bus real quick because we're using a separate mix bus. Okay, so let's set our inputs to bus 20. Let's rename that guy slap. And yes, you could use, for all of you new Pro Tools people that didn't do this way because you learned this way, you could use the new track feature and do it that way as well. But this is just the way I learned how to do it, so it's kind of the way that I revert back to doing it when I am doing it this way and not just on autopilot. All right, so let's pick a delay. Let's use H delay because that one has some good. I want it to be mono. I don't want to be stereo. And I'm looking for something like tape slap delay. So let's just look at tape slap. Lo-fi slap, sure. Let's try that. So let's send some of our vocal over to that slap.
You wanna talk to me just to make me feel weak. You don't know what it means to not have anybody try to.
So I'm not using a lot of it, but I'm using enough of it to where it feels like the vocal has some space around it. Does that make sense? Now let's put some reverb on it. I'm going to use Verb Suite Classic. If we got it, I installed it. It should work. Apple S, so it doesn't crash when I open it up. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. Any questions on the stream?
Not yet.
Are there still 6 people, or they leave us all because I'm boring?
They left as soon as you said the thing about parallel compression.
Boo! That runs a lot of people off.
Yeah. They found out he mixes an audience perspective.
Oh,
They were like,
gross.
Get out of here.
Gross.
I was like, yeah, I would leave too.
So I'm going to use the BM7, which is the Bricassi reverb. And I'm going to use fat plate around a second delay. Let's start there. I'm going to set my pre-delay up to about 50. Start there, see what that sounds like. send some of our vocal over to it. Verse, verb. Let's sneak her in.
You wanna talk to me just to make me feel weak. You don't know what it means to not have anybody try to pick me up. I believed you for a moment.
Let's talk about a quick fix and something.
To not have anybody try to pick me up.
What happens on the pick me up?
To not have anybody try to pick me up.
Plosive. Dang old peas, get you every time.
Is there like a big like wolfiness that's like coming through the speakers?
The subwoofer's on. So, this generally happens on P's and R's and sometimes W's and things like that. But you can actually see it right here in the waveform where the P, the plosive, hits the microphone and makes a low end rumble. So it's really easy to fix. If you go to Audio Suite, EQ, oh my God, where are just the Pro Tools ones? EQ 1 band. And set a filter at like 100 hertz. And render that. Now it'll sound like this.
To pick me up, I believed you for a moment.
See? Magic.
To pick.
All right. Welcome back, viewers.
To pick me up, I believed you for a moment, only to fall down. I knew that this was coming. To pick me up, I believed you for a moment, only to fall down. I knew that this was coming.
She's really powerful. Let's check this one out. I should probably get to a chorus. That's not a chorus. But that's not a chorus either. How did you put these markers in, Brad?
Fake love, fake friends who needs me anyway.
Now this one, I think this sounds different because the way that she sings. It sounds more muffled than when she's singing quietly. Can everyone else, if you weren't here for that, but like, think back to her previous vocal, and I think this one sounds a little more muffled. So I'm not just going to copy my EQ over. I'm going to put new EQ on this one. Using our friend, the SSL EQ.
Fake love, fake friends who needs me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity. I wanted more, that's what I got. Soon enough we'll all be bought. My walls are up, not caving in. Don't trust a human. Fake friends who needs me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singular.
Let's add in our friend, the 1176 compressor, see what that's going to do.
Fake love, fake friends who needs me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity. I want.
Hear how there's still some things poking out even after the compressor, like some syllables are poking through a little more than others. I'm going to add a limiter, that's right, a limiter to the vocal. I'm going to use the L1. Let me find it here, L1. Turn the output ceiling out a little bit.
Fake love, fake friends who needs me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity. I wanted more, that's that's what I got. Soon enough we'll all be bought. My walls are up, not caving in. Don't trust a human.
Now that vocal is not going to move. It's going to sit right in your face the whole time because I got that limiter on it that keeps all those little peaks. You know, I talked about the Christmas tree shaving it down on the sides. It shaves off all those little things that stick out on the edge. It's going to be nice and compact.
Fake love, fake friends who need me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity. I want it more, that's what I got. Soon enough we'll all be bought. My walls are up, not caving in. Don't trust a human.
All right, let's copy all this over to our other background vocals in the chorus because we know it's the same pass, same mic, same compression, same everything.
What mic did y'all use?
U87.
Fake love, fake friends who need me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity. I want it more, that's what I got. Soon enough we'll all be bought. My walls are up, not caving in. Don't trust a human. Was coming. Fake love, fake friends who need me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity. I want it more, that's what I got. Soon enough we'll all be bought. My walls are up, not caving in. Don't trust a human. Was coming. Fake love, fake friends who need me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity.
Why is that not coming out the right fader? Have we not put the mix output? Background 2 should be that one. Background 2 should be that one. See if we
Was
can do that.
coming. Fake love, fake friends. Fuck you, forget them.
Why is it doing that? It's coming out the wrong fader.
Was coming.
Is this fader broken?
Nope, I didn't put that ratio.
I wonder why I couldn't hear that part.
Was coming. Fake love, fake friends who need me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity. I want it more, that's what I got. Soon enough we'll all be bought. My walls are up, not caving in. Don't trust a human. Was coming. Fake love, fake friends who need me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity. I want it more, that's what I got. Soon enough we'll all be bought. My walls are up, not caving in. Don't trust a human.
Okay, so now we figured out that the fader's broken on the console and that's why it wasn't working. But we figured it out. Moving on. I am going to throw the epic on.
Fake love,
on this one.
fake friends who needs me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity. I want it more, that's what I got. Soon enough we'll all be bought. My walls are up, not caving in. Don't trust a human. Fake love, fake
Okay, so we got the song sort of roughed in. We've gone through it, got some EQ and everything done. Now it's time to start putting the automation in and making it really fit together. Because if you notice, like when it goes from the verse to the chorus, the guitars need to get quieter and then louder. Right? Like when the verse happens, the guitars need to get quieter because they're too loud right now. But when the chorus happens and it hits real big, we want the guitars to sound huge and in your face. So we want them to be loud. So we're going to actually go in and automate, pull the faders down and ride the faders to make it happen where they get quieter in the verse and they get louder in the chorus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on right. It's going to be weird because it's split. Literally, the two guitar tracks split the console right here. The one's over here and one's right here. But let's see what we can do. Let's switch this to touch. Switch this to touch. Now let's drop it in and see what I can do.
Tainted by suspicion and clouded by our lies, turning to a power that we ourselves had wrought. Fake love. Tainted by suspicion and clouded by our lies.
So you can see I dipped the guitars when the verse came in so they're not as loud because we don't want them to overtake the vocal. Now the vocal is too loud, so we got to go back and ride that back a little bit. So now you get into the thing where you're fighting, like you turn one thing down, everything else might fall apart. So you got to kind of chase it until you can get your hands back around it. So let's ride this verse vocal. Actually, I think I'm on the second chorus. Let me.
You wanna talk to me? Just
I don't like that one.
you wanna talk to me just to make me feel weak. You don't know what it means to not have anybody try to pick me up. I believed you for a moment, only to fall down. I knew that this was coming. Fake. You wanna talk to me?
So the other thing that I might want to do here, and I said we might do this, but let's try it, is I'm going to try to automate the pan on these guitars to come in more towards the middle in the verse and see what it sounds like. a little more width. So the guitars are going to come in a little narrower in the verse, and then when it gets to the chorus, they're going to go back out full wide. I don't know how it's going to sound yet, but I'm looking for something to help, because there's the guitar part that goes on the whole time. I'm looking for something to help the chorus pop a little bit. That's what I'm looking for. So I pan the guitars in. I might have to turn them down because the pan law says they'll be louder now, but we'll see. Let's check it out.
You wanna talk to me just to make me feel weak. You don't know what it means to not have anybody try to pick me up. I believed you for a moment, only to fall down. I knew that this was coming. Fake love, fake friend who needs me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity. I wanna know that's what I got. Soon enough we'll all be fine. My walls are up, not caving in. Don't trust a human. Tainted by suspicion and clouded by our loss, turned into a power that we ourselves had lost. Fake love, fake friends who needs me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity. I wanna know that's what I got. Soon enough we'll all be fine. My walls are up, not caving in. Don't trust a human. Don't trust a human.
So this guitar needs some sauce on it. It needs, yeah, marinara, totally. So I'm going to put probably the guitar plugin on it because it has delay and other stuff built into it. Let's turn all this stuff off. Need this, Hall, Edge.
Trust a human.
Let's turn our bass down in that section.
Don't trust a human. Don't trust a human. you forget them? Singularity, I want it, that's what I got. Soon enough we'll all be by. My walls are not caving in, don't trust a human. Don't trust a human. Don't trust a human.
Cool. I'm getting there. Where's the beginning of the song? 3.
Wanna talk to me just to make me feel weak. You don't know what it means to not have anybody try to pick me up. I believe.
So I'm just turn those guitars down a little more. I think they're a little too loud in that first.
Wanna talk to me just to make me feel weak. You don't know what it means to not have anybody try to pick me up. I believed you for a moment, only to fall down. I knew that this was coming. Fake love, fake friends who need me anyway. But you forget them. Singularity, I want it, that's what I got. Soon enough we'll all be by. My walls are not caving in, don't trust a human.
Now see, here's the part where like we use faders to write in energy because the vocal goes away in that part of the song. So we need something else to jump in and take back that energy. So what I can do is I can take my guitars and I can pump those up a little bit and maybe try to get a little more energy coming out of that when her vocal goes away. So let's see if we can do that.
Don't trust a human. Tainted by
So what I did was I just pushed up where it went da 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 da. Da. I literally like pushed the faders where he was playing those notes. You can see where I moved the faders right there. So let's see if that adds a little bit of energy coming out of that chorus right there.
don't trust a human. Tainted by
Yeah, it's pretty cool, except for I kind of didn't do this one enough. This needs to come down a little bit in this verse. Almost a good ride.
don't trust a human. Tainted by suspicion and clouded by Don't trust a human.
So that right there, I think we might be able to. It needs a little drama. So I'm going to go to. I'm going to use an Audio Suite plugin to like write it to a new file, and I'm going to use Butch Vig vocals because I don't have Decapitator. Decapitator is my favorite distortion plugin, but I like this one too for distortion. But let's see what it. I don't use this one a lot, so I don't know what all the knobs do. Let's see what we can find here. Yeah. Ooh, Edge Vox. That sounds interesting.
Don't trust a human.
That's not very edgy.
Don't trust a human. 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 Don't trust. Don't trust a human. Don't trust a human. Don't trust a human. Don't trust a human.
You know what? I kind of like that. But it gives me an idea because I'm going to duplicate this track and switch the waveform and mute this. I kind of think it sounds cool if we maybe sneak that up underneath our lead vocal to give it a little bit of grit in this chorus part. I think I use this vocal grind.
Don't trust a human. Fake love, fake friends who needs me anyway. Fuck you, forget them. Singularity. I wanted more, that's what I got. Soon enough, we'll all be bought. My walls are up, not caving in. Don't trust a human. Wanna talk to me just to make me feel weak. You don't know what it means to not have anybody try to pick me up. I believed you for a moment, only to fall down. I knew that this was coming. Fake love, fake friends who needs me anyway. Fuck you, forget them. Singularity. I wanted more, that's what I got. Soon enough, we'll all be bought. My walls are up, not caving in. Don't trust a human. Tainted by suspicion and clouded by.
Let's turn the bass down a little bit and reverse it. I think he's getting a little too boom-boom-y.
just to make me feel weak. You don't know what it means to not have anybody try to pick me up. I believe you for a moment, only to fall down. Tainted by suspicion and clouded by our lies, turn into a power that we ourselves had wrought. Fake love, fake friends who needs me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity. I want it more, that's what I got. Soon enough we'll all be barred. My walls are up, not caving in. Don't trust a human. Don't trust a human.
I don't like that guitar.
Don't trust a human. Don't trust a human. Fake love, fake friends who needs me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity.
So right here in this breakdown section, we added that little distortion thing. We gotta get rid of it.
Fake love, fake friends who needs me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity. I want it more, that's what I got. Soon enough we'll all be barred. My walls are up. Fake love, fake friends who needs me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity. I want it more, that's what I got. Soon enough we'll all be barred. My walls are up, not caving in. Don't trust a human. Don't trust a human. Don't trust a human.
Yeah, and there we go. So I kind of tied up the last little bit without. I was doing a lot of stuff at one time. Do you guys have any questions about what I was doing or anything?
I think as Noah was saying earlier, it just takes a lot of repetition.
Yep.
Fake love, fake friends who needs me any.
I still feel like.
Fake love, fake friends who needs me anyway.
Get to the part where you sing.
Fake love, fake friends who needs me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity. I want it more, that's what I got. Soon enough we'll all be part. My walls are up, not caving in. Don't trust a human.
thick.
You wanna talk to me just to make me feel weak. You don't know what it means to not have anybody try to pick me up. I believed you for a moment, only to fall down. I knew that this was coming. Fake love, fake friend to meet me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity. I wanna know that's what I got. Soon enough we'll all be fine. My walls are all not caving in. Don't trust a tainted by suspicion and clouded by our loss, torn into a power that we ourselves had wrought. Fake love, fake friend to meet me anyway. Fuck you, forget them, singularity. I wanna know.
So there we go. At this point, I'll probably have the band come in and listen and get their feedback and see what happens from there. They might hate it. They might love it. They might have lots of tweaks. They might have a couple of tweaks.
Who's the engineer on this? You and Brad? Or?
Me and Brad did the vocals. I did the track. Yeah. Brad's really good at doing vocals. He got a really good performance out of him. But yeah, you guys have any questions or anything? Want me to show you anything else?
No.
The thing about mixing is it takes time, it takes practice, but you've got to always remember that the song is the most important thing. Everything that you do serves the song. Whether that's an EQ choice or how you make the guitar sound, how you make the drum sound, it all serves the song. The song's the most important thing.
Also, I guess another cool thing, like, I guess you said, like, you shouldn't take too long mixing a song.
No, you shouldn't.
But you still want to make sure, like, you set it and leave it.
Well, I mean, you learn to just, like, if I was in my room and I had, like, my setup, while I'm listening down the first time I'm hearing the song, I'm putting EQs on things and starting to EQ it. Does that make sense? Like, because it's really easy for me to do the way that I have my setup and everything works. So it's like, it's not that you don't want to make it right and good. It's just that you get to a point where it's diminishing returns, where you can sit here and I can automate every little track as much as I want, but does it really make a difference in the scope of the impact and like what the song means and how it sounds? Like, that's why it always bugs me when like, I can really tell when artists listen to the mix and not just like individual elements, when they come back and say things like, I don't think the guitars have the right energy, or there's something that the chorus doesn't hit right. I know they're listening to the mix. When they come back and say the hi-hat's too loud, I know they're listening to individual elements, and that's not the way that we listen to mixes. Because if you think the hi-hat's too loud, if you think me turning down the hi-hat 1 dB is going to take your song from no one liking it to a hit record, I don't think you understand how to write songs. Does that make sense? But if you say the guitars don't have the right energy in the chorus, that could take the song to a completely different level, because that's the hook of the song, and the guitars and the energy need to jump up there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so just more focusing on bigger things and instead of the small
Yeah, don't focus on the individual sounds as much as you focus on the sound of the whole mix and how cohesive it is together. It's all about how the song, like, some songs might start off really, like this one starts off big, gets small, gets big again, small, big. some songs start small, grow, and get big. You have to make that grow with the track with the faders. It's not like how every individual element sounds. It's about how you piece it all together and how you make it flow and work and get up to the big part of the song. So that's the key, is never lose track of the song, never lose track of the energy of the song, and never like take that for granted, because that's the most important part of what we do, is we try to take the song and present it in the best light possible with how the artist wants it presented. If the how the artist wants it presented. We're a service-based industry. I know it, and like all the time, people come in and say, I don't like the guitars are too loud, the drums aren't loud enough, and I'm like, sure, okay, cool, here, let's fix it. Because in the end, like, I've presented them with my version of my mix, but it's their song. I know that I'm performing a service for them. So like, you can't get butt hurt, for lack of better words, when someone says, I want the guitars to be quieter in the choruses, I want the drums to be louder, because it's their song. Like, you're just here to help them present it in the best way possible. So, but now there are some, if there's a producer involved and a band, there might be some things where the producer wants one thing, the band wants another thing, and that's just a whole different situation where you have to sit through it and just wait on them to solve it, to talk it out. But for the most part, if it's just a band or just a producer and they're telling you what to do, it's pretty easy to get it sorted pretty quick. As long as you, and that's why like the rough mix is really important. When you get a rough mix from a band, make sure you listen to it, because it'll tell you what's important to the band. If they have this weird guitar part that you hate, but they have it up plus 12 dB in their rough mix, guess what? You've got to use it. You can't not use that guitar part, even if you hate it, because they really like it. So the rough mix is really important for letting you know like how the band's hearing the song in their heads before you get it and start to work on it. So there wasn't one in this case because we just did the Vocal Tuesday. We barely had time to tune it and get it all pocketed. We didn't have time to get it pocketed. I did vocal line like the first 30 minutes here. So yeah, it's about vibe. That's all it is. The vibe of your mix. Everything's different. Every song is different. No two are the same. But you start coming back. Workflow is what's super important to me. Like, I can mix any song, but my workflow is still the same. The way that I like the way that I process things, the way that I EQ, the way that I do that, it's all the same. So I'm spending zero creative energy on workflow. I have everything set up in the session before I start doing anything creative. Like the night before I mix a song, I will go in, I will make auxes, I will rename auxes, I'll make delays, make reverbs, do all that, so it's all ready to go. So I'm not doing anything like creatively that has to deal with setting something up. I'm not stopping my creative process. I'm pushing faders and I'm going, oh, I want this, I want that, I want this EQ. Like, I'll even, like when I pull up a song to mix, I put the SSL EQ across every channel. So I know I can go into it, just click on the top row really quick, and that's the SSL EQ, and I can go in and EQ it without having to add an EQ. That's just me. Some people don't like to do that. I do. If I want a different EQ, I can always change it, but that gives me some like tone shaping right off the bat for every channel that I don't have to go in and add. I can just click on it and it's already there. So workflow, and I can't tell you what your workflow is. It's something you have to figure out what works best for you. Everyone's got their own way they like to label things, way they like to color code things. Like, I sent this session off to Brad to do the vocals, and it came back like all the colors were different, like, because he likes it set up differently, which is totally fine. I just change it back the way that I like it. So, yeah, it's all about workflow and vibe and dynamics, getting the song to hit right. But yeah, it's pretty much, and it just takes time. Balance. Focus on balancing when you're starting out mixing. Like, focus on get the rough balance right first. Like, don't put any plugins on anything. Just see if you can balance the song, and then work backwards. Because before you start getting into, you can get into a lot of trouble just going in and EQing things before you have the song balanced, before you have like the picture of the song, because you don't know where you're going. Like, I like snappy, punchy, aggressive kick drums. If I'm mixing a bluegrass band, guess what I can't do to the kick drum? Make it snappy, punchy, and aggressive. I've got to make it pillowy and soft. So like before you have like I get the picture of the song on the faders before I do a lot of EQing, and then I dive in and I start getting to the real work type of stuff. So that's my advice to you when you're starting out, when you're mixing your first couple songs. Get the balance of the song on the faders, whether it's on a desk, on inside Pro Tools, inside Logic, inside Ableton, whatever. And then focus on, then you can go in and tweak it and say, what don't I like about this and how can I make it better, and do that. And just because I put an EQ on every channel doesn't mean that I use it. I didn't EQ the hi-hat, I didn't EQ the toms, I didn't EQ the ride cymbal. Like, I didn't EQ the kick drum sample. I didn't EQ the snare drum samples. Like, not everything needs EQ. It's there if you need it, but if you don't need it, you don't have to use it. Like, just because you have a plugin in Pro Tools doesn't mean that you have to use it. So that's solid advice too. Well, cool. Any questions? Cool. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you.
And I'll see you on Monday because class starts back on Monday.
Yes.
All right.
So, what was the rate, the thing on the 1176 said?
3 and 7.
3 and 7. What's 3 is for the
Attack. 7's release.
Gotcha.
4 to 1, 3, 7, hit 10.
4-1 ratio, right?
Yeah, right.
Gotcha.
3, 7, hit 10. See you, Streamland.